Today, I want to introduce you to a piece of gear that might be the future of amplified harmonica playing. This is the Harmonicaster, the world's first truly electric harmonica system. But is it any good, or is it just a gimmick? Let's find out. Hey, I'm Jonah Fox, and today I'm reviewing the Harmonicaster. So this is an actual electric harmonica system. It uses a special set of harmonicas and alumitone pickups to amplify the harmonica's sound instead of using a mic to capture the sound. It's like the first electric guitar of the harmonica world, but is it any good? All right, first let's hear how this thing sounds. I have this running through my pedal board of mostly Lone Wolf pedals, and I'm playing on an A harmonica, and you can find the backing track in the description. Here's a quick demo, and you can hear more of this at the end of the video. Here we go. All right, so you can tell that this piece of kit has the potential to sound great. It has a different tone characteristic than a standard mic, but it's a good sound. Now, one thing that's amazing about this design is that it's impossible to get feedback on this thing, and you can drive it significantly harder than a normal mic without worry. It's also surprisingly good for playing at a low volume, but we'll get into all of this more later. So let me explain how this works. First, the Harmonicaster itself is this boxy device. It's very lightweight and easy to hold. I would say that it's a little more comfortable than a big heavy bullet mic, but for me it's a little less comfortable than my main mic, which is the Jason Ritchie mic, which I just think is the best harmonica mic for ergonomics personally. But you know, it's pretty good, and I wouldn't worry about using this at a multiple hour long show. To get this set up, you plug a 1/4-inch guitar cable at the bottom, and then the other side goes to your amp or your pedal board or whatever you have running in to amplify your sound. You could also use a little wireless transmitter, which I will be using later for the demo, and I used earlier in the blues jam that I showed you. So you just plug it in, and it's ready to go. Ronnie Schreiber, who makes this, to his credit, he has been working with me to improve the design for a few months. With my feedback, we've adjusted the placement of the input jack and the types of pots for volume control, and I think this final version now is really good and ready for prime time. You have a volume control, which you can easily reach with your fingers on your right hand, so it would work how you would expect. I'm running this right now through a little Boss Katana MIDI, so that works very well, and you can also dial in treble and bass. We're going to turn the treble down. And the bass this time too. So you're probably going to want to have your treble and bass up, but it's nice that you have the option to go and change that. Now, there's also the ability to switch between a single coil and a humbucker pickup. Now, I'm a guitarist, so these are familiar terms to me, but if you're not, I'm going to quickly explain. Without the technicality, pickups can often give a little bit of hum. Single coils have that hum, and they have a different tone that has a little bit more of an edge, and the humbucker takes away the hum, and the sound is a little bit more smoothed out. In the guitar world, this is like comparing a Fender Stratocaster, which is a single coil guitar, with a Gibson Les Paul, which uses humbuckers. I'll let you hear it. So here's the single coil, and I want you to notice the hum. I'm going to crank this a little bit more here, just so it's a little more obvious here. There's a little bit of a hum. You hear that? Now I'm going to turn it to humbucker. There's still a little bit of a hum, but it's a little less noticeable. So not a big deal. I don't think having the ability to switch is going to really change your life that much, but you know, I guess the option is better than not having the option. Now, because there are issues with the metal cover plates of your average harmonicas, you do have to buy separate harmonicas to use this system with. They are modified Seidel session steels that have plastic cover plates, and they pick up the vibration of the steel reeds inside that they use. So Seidel session steels, they're good. It's a session steel. It's not my favorite harp personally, but they perform perfectly well. So no complaints there. And you of course can play them without the Harmonicaster. Okay, so you can use them as a set of harmonicas, though they are a little bit quieter than your average harmonica, which could be a good thing. We'll talk about that later. So this system is $325, and you get an A harmonica with it, and additional keys are $85 each. Now, if you want to change keys, all you need to do is you just pull it out. It doesn't really take any force, and you just pop a new one in there. Okay, very easy. I have 3 keys here. I have an A, a B flat, and a D, and you could just easily kind of quickly change through keys. So that's no big deal. Very easy to go and use. So this is a D harmonica. All right, so that's how this works as far as changing keys, but you have to use these harmonicas, and you can't use any harmonica aside from these modified session steels that you have to purchase from this company. This setup is pretty clever, but I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Why would you bother with something like this as opposed to a traditional harmonica mic system, especially if you can't use harmonicas that are already in your collection? Well, there's a few reasons, and the first is feedback. So if you play amplified harmonica, you'll know how much of a pain feedback can be. And when you're performing, it's honestly kind of stressful. Now, with the right EQ settings, you should be able to get a traditional harmonica mic to be pretty loud without feedback. However, that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen at all. If you're playing at really loud volumes at a gig, there's a very good chance that you're going to at least occasionally get feedback. And usually the move, so here's my normal mic, usually the move is to frantically turn down the volume once you hear feedback. And then generally you have to dial things in properly, so hopefully it just doesn't happen in the first place. It is something that you can live with, but it's a pretty constant annoyance when you're playing, and it can be a big source of stress when you're at a gig. Now, I don't want to blow your ears out, but I want to just give you an idea. Now, I have this little Boss Katana Mini. That's what I'm running this through. And here is my here's my Jason Ritchie mic. Now, this is like my basic setup here. Now, I would not be able to run this at the highest settings that this amp has. So generally on this mic, there's like 3 channels. There's like a clean, a crunch, and like brown setting, okay? So brown is like the heaviest one, right? So this is it at the middle channel. So this is crunch. And the volume is quite a ways down. Now, if I even very briefly switch it to the heaviest setting, okay, you can see, you get feedback. I just cut the signal right away. So you get feedback, and so you can't drive a normal mic quite as hard. Now, if I switch this to the Harmonicaster and I run this here, okay, so that is at the middle channel, so that's not bad, right? Now here's the high channel. So no feedback, right? And I can drive it even more. Here's the gain at 100, okay? I'd never do this on my normal setup. All right, so you can tell it works, right? It doesn't have any feedback. And if you're a performer and you hate dealing with feedback, this could be an upgrade that actually works. Now, there's other ways of dealing with feedback. Just to give you the whole picture, there are pedals, which will essentially, like, if you're not playing, it'll cut your signal, and that can help. You know, that's like a harp shield pedal, and there's some other solutions, but there's no perfect solutions. This is actually a perfect solution. But I do want to also say that the tone on here is a little different. It's not the same as a normal mic, and I think it's good. I think it's better in some ways. Like as an example, chords on this thing here, they're pretty controlled compared to a standard mic, so chords can be a little bit more usable. Sometimes chords can be almost like explosively distorted, even if your normal tone is really clean, and this doesn't really have that situation. Also, another real positive of this situation is that there's no breath noises. Now, to show you why this matters here, I'm back on my Jason Ritchie mic. Now, listen to my breath, okay, when I have the volume pretty up. You can tell it's picking up my breath, which I think for the most part is unwanted. Sometimes, like in some tongue blocking things, that can be kind of nice with like a lot of slaps and pulls, but the Harmonicaster doesn't pick that up at all. Now, if you're really heavily driven, let's say if I'm using my normal pedal board and I'm using a harp break pedal. So if I'm really, really driven, sometimes my breath on this microphone can be incredibly loud, and I'm like frantically like turning the volume down and then turning it back up to make sure that these things aren't a problem. So breath noises on a standard harmonica mic and amp setup is kind of a big issue, but on the Harmonicaster, it's no problem at all. See, I can really, I'm gonna crank this here just so you can see this is at its most driven setting, max gain, the most distorted channel. And listen, I'm gonna try to really exaggerate my breath. It doesn't pick it up, right? Now it still gets some of that nice, like kind of slapped tone in there. But it doesn't have any of the negative parts of that, which is like all that kind of breathy noise. So that totally goes away. Now let's talk pedals. Now, normally on harmonica, we have to be very careful about buying pedals unless you get harmonica specific pedals like the ones from Lone Wolf Blues Company. Many guitar pedals are just not going to work. You plug them in, you turn them on, and you get instant feedback. It doesn't mean that all guitar pedals don't work, but many don't. Like as an example, reverb pedals for a guitar or another instrument usually work on harmonica, but anything that amplifies your sound ends up causing feedback. So distortion pedals, all that kind of stuff is totally not an option. Now with the Harmonicaster, you can use every guitar pedal. It doesn't mean that they're all necessarily going to sound as good as they would on a guitar, because you know they're not meant for an instrument with this frequency range, but you could try them all without worrying about feedback, and you could potentially find some innovative tones that you can use on this thing that other players just can't match. This potentially reduces how much you need to spend to get a wide-ranging set of pedals. So like running this thing through a good modeling guitar pedal like a Tonex, as an example, would give you a ton of different tone options, and you could probably use certain pedals like a wah pedal more effectively. Unfortunately, I don't have one to demonstrate for you here, but that's the idea. There's also another potential use case here, which is playing quietly, ironically enough. The harmonicas for this are on the quiet side, okay? So I'll just show you here. Here's a, let's do a Harmonicaster. So that's a little bit quieter compared to like a crossover. Obviously, this isn't silent or anything, but let's say you ran this through a amp that has a headphone jack, or you run this through a computer using an audio interface. You could be playing and having the full amplified experience, but you can do this at a much quieter volume and a better tone than you're probably going to get with an average harmonica microphone, because the harmonicas themselves are quieter. Having this box right in there where it projects sound quiets it down even more. I mean, theoretically, you could probably tape this little grill off in the back and quiet that down even more. if you wanted to, but it's a little bit quieter. For some data, I measured 77 decibels up close to this thing and 65 decibels 3 feet away. If I was playing at my max volume, compared to the crossover in the same key, I get 92 decibels up close and 80 decibels at 3 feet away. So not a massive difference, but it is a noticeable one. Harmonica is a relatively quiet instrument as it is, and there are other moves that you can take, like playing a smaller harmonica like a baby fat and cupping it tightly, or playing on a low key harmonica, which might be at a similar volume but is a little easier to listen to. So if you have a lot of people that like don't want you making noise, this is one way of dealing with the problem. I've mostly been playing with this through a computer set up for guitar. I'm using an audio interface and a program called Tonocracy, which is free. And I get a whole bunch of different amps to play around with. Not all of them are super impressive or powerful on this, but they all work, and I'm not getting crazy noise where a normal mic would be so noisy it would be unusable. So if you want to stop worrying about feedback, you want to experiment with a wider range of pedals, or you're just interested in playing this at a quieter volume or jamming out with headphones, I think this is a solid piece of gear to pick up. It works really well. I like this thing, I recommend it, and if you resonated with any of the problems that I've mentioned about a normal mic system, the Harmonicaster might be for you. There'll be links to purchase this down below, and I'll leave you today with a full blues jam. I hope you enjoy it. This is running through my full Lone Wolf Blues Company pedal board. I have things cranked a little bit higher than I would on a normal microphone, but because it all sounds good, I have the freedom to do that. Enjoy.